The eagle has landed. Direct
So we
quote.
got MJ coming in. Get ready to start chanting math. Math.
He's holding his own umbrella. We love
He's what a guy.
That's true. We're not
perfect. Stop.
All right, y'all. Here he comes.
Are we actually chanting math?
Are we actually? Yeah, we're gonna go. Everybody.
Just like this is
Three,
moderately loud. Yeah,
2,
moderate loud.
1.
So my question is, what do you chant for other people?
Hi.
How are you all doing?
Great, how are you?
Oh, so fun. So you're high school students?
Yes.
But not in this school. All over.
We're from this school.
Oh, that's fun.
So we're gonna.
What a way to spend a Sunday.
I know, right?
Yeah.
We've been up since 5:30 a.m. So we are part of the Roosevelt Yearbook and newspaper, and we're gonna do a little interview with you.
Sure.
If you mind having a seat, you get some pictures if you don't mind.
Thanks for fun.
Also, if you like, you send our yearbook
Sure.
over there. Not to peer pressure, but everyone else has.
Yeah, no, it'd be like, I decline.
Right.
It'd have to be kind of a tool.
Yeah, right.
And we're all fairly untooled, I would say.
Okay, I'm Ivy Williamson. I'm editor-in-chief of the yearbook here.
Wow, so fun.
I'm Drew. I'm also editor-in-chief of the yearbook.
I'm Sam. I'm editor-in-chief of the newspaper.
I'm Emmy. I'm also an editor-in-chief of the newspaper.
Oh, so great, guys. Congratulations. Does that make you all juniors, seniors?
Us
They're
three
all
are seniors.
I'm a junior,
Oh, that's great.
so.
Oh, congrats. It's a big responsibility. Looks great. The college app, too.
Yeah, you're right. It's really fun. We love
Yeah,
it.
it
We
is.
love it. It's so fun. Go on trips and everything. Super fun.
Hang out with cool presidential candidates.
Yeah.
No big deal.
No biggie. Getting into football games for free. That's out there too. Okay, so first question we have is, how do we pay teachers fairly and ensure that our schools are in a good physical condition?
The data shows that teachers are underpaid. Because if you have a good teacher, and you all know this, we all know this, the difference between a good teacher and an okay teacher is enormous. The difference between a good teacher and a bad teacher is like, And so if you have a good teacher in a classroom, they generate hundreds of thousands of dollars just in strict economic value based upon the outcomes of their students over time. And the problem right now is that we're not actually measuring that benefit appropriately. And so teachers are in a tough spot because the state essentially argues that they're all just costs, and that like we're just going to give you the minimal raise that we can, and just try to get away with it as long as we can. So we should give teachers a raise. We need to recruit and enlist and retain the best teachers, really. And the easiest way to do that is just to pay more. So what I would do is I'd give everyone a $12,000 a year raise immediately, because that's my flagship proposal. That obviously would go a very long way for teachers, go a long way for you all too. And then we would start trying to see our kids and our teachers as investments, and then that would end up giving them really, hopefully, a much more competitive salary over time.
Okay, so what is the issue that you're most passionate about, and how would you encourage students to get involved in that issue?
The issue of most, and for young people in particular, I genuinely am running because I think we just left you a total mess, and then somehow blamed you for it, which is very bizarre.
Right.
You're like, it's somehow your fault. It makes no sense at all. So the thing that I am most passionate about, where you're concerned, is that our economy and society is not setting you up to succeed. You know, it's like you all will go to college, it sounds like, and then you're very likely to graduate with tens of thousands of school loans, because that's now the new norm. We're up to 1.5 trillion in student loan debt. And then you're going to graduate and say there's going to be a good job waiting for you. Oh wait, 94% of the jobs are actually temp gig or contract jobs.
Yeah, right.
And the benefits your parents might have gotten are not going to be there for you. But again, we're somehow going to blame you for it. So to me, that's the playing field that's been set up, and it's unfair. And so I would try and fix that. And if we can fix that, then we can also make progress on climate change, which is, to me, side by side with our economy as the main problems.
And then my question was, so I know a big issue for students especially is climate change. And so what is your plan to battle climate change?
I've got a 5-part plan. The brutal truth is that we're years behind on climate change. The last 4 years have been the 4 warmest years, so it's not off in the future anymore. It's now. July was the hottest month in human history. I mean, you have to be kind of brain dead to think that's a coincidence. It'd be like, oh, maybe July just got really hot. So we're behind. The other tough truth is that the United States of America is only 15% of global emissions. So even if we were somehow to go to zero, the Earth would probably keep warming. And the current studies show that even the worst projections are now being exceeded. Like Greenland is melting at the rate projected in 2070 today. And a lot of these glaciers are like ice cubes in a cup of water or soda, where when you put the ice cube in, and then it looks like it's not melting for a while, right? But then when it starts to melt, the melt rate picks up steam. That's what the glaciers are like too. The glaciers are actually more resistant to melting initially, but then after they start melting, it unfortunately starts spiraling. So the way to fight it is to not just move us towards more renewable sources of energy, but also try and make renewable sources of energy more cost competitive for Africa and the developing world, because right now those countries are burning coal. And if we do everything we can, we also have to try and help other parts of the world modernize in the same way, which is a very big move, because right now we're not anywhere in that game. Like, we're not trying to export renewables to that scale. I would also spend hundreds of billions of dollars making our communities more resilient. And that's not just on the coast. I mean, we saw the flooding here. When was that?
That was last year.
It was last summer. I was thinking, was that the last summer? Yeah. So it's everywhere. And what we do right now is we wait for a disaster and then we rebuild, which often is a very expensive way to go. And so we should start spending the money now, because unfortunately a lot of this stuff is somewhat predictable. And then I would make it a constitutional amendment that we have to safeguard the environment. And I would, which for whatever reason I think I might be the only candidate calling for it. And then I would say that we have to do not just less of the bad, but more of the good. So I want us to plant a lot more trees. I want us to start seeding the oceans with plankton and other things to try and rebuild the ecosystems, because they're not doing well right now. They're actually disintegrating. Yeah. It's a very long-winded way of saying that. A lot.
Yeah.
But I actually think everything's related too, because if we put $1,000 a month into everyone's hands, then I think they'd be more likely to have a more proactive attitude towards climate change. Like, if you can't pay your bills, and I say climate change, then it's like, I can't worry about climate change.
Right.
Like, I'm just trying to pay my bills next month.
Right, yeah.
Then if you get the boot off of people's throat, then you say, hey, we need to worry about climate change. It's like, yeah, I guess we do. And young people in particular, I think you all have such an important voice, because you see a lot of these issues much more clearly. I'm going to tell you guys what happens, and it's not great. So you're young. You're in high school, then you go to college or community college or vocational school. And then as soon as you leave school, then the marketplace starts beating you with a club, like essentially every day. And so right now, in many ways, you can see things much more clearly than most adults can, because adults are getting clouded by bills. Really. Like, as an adult, that's what happens. You're just like, oh, I've got like these bills to pay, and maybe they have, kids to raise, and I'm a parent, I've got 2 kids, and so you have all of these stresses, and then when someone raises like big issues, you're not going to believe this, maybe you'll believe this, but like your own bills seem more immediate to you and more pressing than like the major existential problems like climate change. So that's one reason why you can see young people are some of the biggest leaders in terms of being passionate about climate change, because you all can see it very clearly. You're also going to be here longer, so to the extent that we turn this place into a disaster, like, some of the olds will die off sooner, and then be like, well, I guess, I guess before the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
So one of the things I propose too that might apply to some of you is I want to lower the voting age to 16. Because if you did that, then all of a sudden you'd activate all of high school juniors. Every high school would become a political hotbed. right now politics is, I mean, you're in Iowa, so maybe it does happen here. But in most high schools around the country, I don't think it's as central topic, in part because most people can't vote, except for the seniors who are like on the way out. So if you lower the voting age to 16, then that would be a game changer, because then, and studies bear this out, the younger you are when you first vote, the more likely you are to vote consistently for the rest of your life. So you get people voting early, they'll vote. And then when people say to me, when I've presented this, they'll be like, well, 16-year-olds don't know what's going on with politics. I'm just like, well, a lot of Americans don't know what's going on with politics. It's not like you're giving someone a freaking pop quiz when they show up to the polls, being like, have you studied?
Yeah, right.
I mean, they're called low information voters for a reason. So to me, like, the average 16-year-old is no more or less able to get educated on the issues than any other American. And 16-year-olds can pay taxes, which theoretically, if you can pay taxes, then you should be able to vote. And you're going to be here longer, so you have a higher stake in what the heck we do.
Yeah.
So to me, lowering the voting age to 16 has both practical and moral and democratic very strong rationale for it, and the rationale against it's kind of flimsy in my mind. So I'm championing lowering the voting age to 16. And I have to say, this is not like a very mainstream or popular issue yet, in large part because people ignore young people on this. You know what I mean? Like, and one of the things that's happening, and this is not a knock, but it's just numbers, the electorate tends to skew old. And our policies tend to skew old as a result. So there's this massive lag time. And to me, if we can shorten that lag time, it could have massive benefits. So I like to think of myself as really a campaign for your generation, because I'm running to try and fix things for you all and my kids, to not leave you a total disaster.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Would
Thank
you
you
mind
all.
taking a picture with the
No, no.
four of us?
Thank you.
I'll get a picture with you, all of you.